Welcome, dear time traveler, to the Goan shore of the galaxy. Let us now travel through the timeless walls of the Fort Aguada. This is the story of a fort that held its ground for 500 years. The history of a fort that was never breached and never broken, standing still through time and tide. The geographic location of the blessed land of Goa was recognized by every kingdom who wanted to make a mark in sea trade, and several wars were fought on its coastline to ensure maritime supremacy in the region. The land became the foremost ports of trade with the Indian subcontinent, the gateway to the incredible land of spices, silk, gems, and great fortune. The gateway to India for millions of seafarers who came here and never wanted to leave this land of golden sand, just like you and me. Let's travel back in time to the very beginning, to unearth the legend of the land, buried in the sands of mythology. Goa has its roots in the Skanda Purana, recorded in Sanskrit as Gomantak, or land of the cows. Legend has it that the warrior sage Parshuram, the sixth incarnation of Lord Vishnu, stood on the peak of the Sayadri hills and asked Varuna, the lord of the seas, to retreat till the point where an arrow he would shoot would land. Parshuram is believed to have reclaimed the entire stretch of the Konkan coast several thousand years ago. This legend is a reference to the elevation of submerged land along the west coast. This geological process is said to have taken place 12,000 years ago and is validated by the marine fossils, buried seashells, sand, and other features consistent with reclaimed topography. In the Sutta Samhita, Govapuri appears as another ancient name associated with the spiritual cleansing touch and the blessings of the divine. Gopakapatnam, Gopakapuri, Gomanchala, and Goparashtra are a few other names found in the Puranas, all representing the district of cowherds and nomadic tribes with cattle, and indicate the pastoral life led by the first settlers here. The early ages can be deciphered from prehistoric rock inscriptions. The factual evidence of human presence in the prehistoric era was found in the 10,000-year-old rock carvings of Usgalimal on the banks of the river Kushvati. More than 140 forms of such petroglyphs are found in the area. The locals refer to the rock art carvings as Gorva Rakhya Chichitra, or pictures made by local cowherds. Similar rock art carvings were also found at Kazur, Maushi, and Virdi in Savantwadi. In 2200 BCE, the first written reference to Goa appears to have been in the cuneiform script, rendered in Sumerian times when King Judea of Lagash called it Gubbio. Goa was ruled by several dynasties of various origins from 100 BCE to 1500 CE, with different traditional and cultural backgrounds, and the people of the land adopted several customs from the visiting Arab and European traders. The history of Goa shows that the state has undergone several transformations as an outcome of its geographic location. The sangam of multiple cultures, like multiple rivers flowing to the sea, the melting pot of multiple cultures. Trade and arts flourished under the rule of the Bhojas, Chalukyas, Rashtrakutas, and the Kadambas. The Vijayanagar Empire, the Bahmani Sultanate, and the Bijapur Adil Shahi Sultanate. The Muslim rulers settled down here as traders, but soon started to destroy the temples built by the former Hindu rulers of the region. Their rule was breached with the arrival of the Vijayanagar Empire in the 14th-15th century. But the Muslims returned to power in 1470 with the Bahmani Sultanate. When the Bahmani Sultanate broke up in 1492, Goa became a part of the Adil Shahi Bijapur Sultanate, which established Ellapuri, later known as Vella Goa, as its second capital. The arrival of the Portuguese ships in 1500 CE. Vasco da Gama and other adventurers discovered the same route to India when they landed in Calicut in 1498. Their exploits along the Konkan coast led the Portuguese to arrive on the Goan shores with huge fleets in 1510. Led by Alfonso de Albuquerque, they attacked and defeated the ruling Adil Shah of Bijapur and made Vella Goa, later known as Old Goa, their permanent settlement. Like all the seafarers before them, the sailors from Portugal came here and anchored themselves to the land. The state, with its welcoming coastline from Anjadiva Island to Bella Goa, was ideal for seafaring. The first chapel, built by the Portuguese upon their arrival, was the Anjadiva Chapel. To hold a lucrative control over spice trade, they converted the entire port city into a marketplace, and separate streets were assigned for the sale of different merchandise such as spices, corals, pearls, silks, and more. Gradually, Goa became the center of trade and the second capital of the Portuguese Empire, famously called Lisbon of the East. Fort Aguada traces its origins to 1604, when the Portuguese realized the importance of this location as a port and decided to safeguard it with all their military might from the attacks of the French and Dutch forces. The word agua means water in Portuguese, and the fort derives its name from the rainwater harvesting tank in the upper fort and many freshwater springs located within the fort. Thousands of sailing ships stopped here to replenish their stocks of potable water from this freshwater source with a capacity of over 2 million gallons of water. This fort became a massive citadel and a landmark that defined the landscape of Goa, an epitome of Portuguese heritage and military style of architecture, on the edge of the Arabian Sea and the mouth of the river Mandovi. It was constructed using laterite stone, which is found in abundance in Goa. The upper part was designed to serve as a fort with a gunpowder room, a moat, and a huge watering station. The lower part extended a safe berth for Portuguese ships. The lower fort housed the prison of the fort, this very prison. The fort is enveloped by high walls and bastions that surround the fort on 3 sides. The fort was the grandstand of over 100 cannons, displaying the military might of the Portuguese, the importance they gave to holding the fort at any cost. The lighthouse within the fort's premises served as a reference point for the ships and vessels sailing in from Europe. The lighthouse initially made use of oil lamps to guide the ships out in the sea by emitting light once every 7 minutes. Later in 1834, it was upgraded to emit light every 30 seconds, ensuring that more and more ships landed in Goa following this ancient guiding light. A gigantic bell adorned the lighthouse, which was salvaged from the ruins of the convent of St. Augustine in Old Goa. This bell served as a warning signal to the Portuguese soldiers and ships downriver upon sighting of enemy warships. The legend of the mighty Fort Aguada was spread around the world through travelers' tales of adventures, traders, sailors, and warriors. While Christianity had already arrived in Goa in the 1st century CE with the visit of St. Thomas, who first stopped here on his way to Kerala in South India, it was the legendary St. Francis Xavier and the many orders of the Christian faith from Portugal who firmly established Goa as the center of Christianity. Such was his impact on the people's mind that St. Francis Xavier is still revered as the city's patron saint. Christianity spread enormously into the region as religious conversions were practiced, and many Hindus left Goa to avoid religious conversions. The Portuguese began their religious conquest by aiming to convert all the Hindus and Muslims in their territory. Persuasion rather than force was used to convert at first. Soldiers were encouraged to marry local women to ensure Christian progeny. Soon their tactics became more forceful. Shrines across the territory of the old conquests in Tiswadi, Bardez and Salsette were plundered. Hundreds of temples and idols were destroyed and mosques burnt down for failure to convert. Due to fear of incarceration, many secret rituals were kept alive with active worship throughout the Christian conquest. Several temples and holy idols were shifted outside the Portuguese territory at safer inland locations, up the rivers and deep inside jungles by the faithful who kept their faith alive in these secret temples in spite of 5 centuries of religious oppression, desecration and destruction of the temples. The natives could not fight the military might of the Portuguese, but were fearless in their beliefs and were willing to fight to the death for their faith. They were the first freedom fighters who resisted the Portuguese rule in their own ways. The Maratha Wars of 1664 to 1739 destabilized the Portuguese stronghold in India. The relentless pursuit of mass conversions led to several revolts from the Hindus and instigated the fierce Marathas to attack this port city several times. The champions of guerrilla warfare from land and sea, led by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's son, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj, attacked at will. But the Portuguese managed to hold the fort by entering into strategic alliances with their powerful European counterparts in the region, the British forces, who were already ruling over several parts of India. They continued to expand their territories, which enabled them to expand their control over Kanakona, Sanguem, Quepe, Ponda, Picholi, Satari, and Perne. These new acquisitions were known as the Novas Conquistas, or New Conquests. They say history is always written in blood, and so is the history of Goa. Holding fort, standing still through time and tide. Goa underwent one of the longest struggles for freedom from foreign rule. This prison stands as a metaphor of that historic freedom struggle, with the spirit of resistance rising like the natural spring water, echoing in the voices of thousands of sons and daughters of the soil as they stood up to fight for their birthright. Not only did the Portuguese bring in the trade and the golden age, with luxury and ostentation for the rulers, but it brought centuries of slavery and misery to the native Goans. The first native revolt started as early as the late 16th century against the missionaries. 1787 saw the conspiracy of the Pintos, when several local Goan Catholic priests, who were seething with discontent, revolted on account of the deprivation of the top ecclesiastical seats reserved for European clergy. The real resistance began with a series of Rane revolts that created an atmosphere of terror in Portuguese strongholds. During the period between 1755 and 1822, the Ranes of Satari launched 24 insurrections in order to secure their lost rights from the Portuguese rulers. Azad Gomantak Dal, founded by Vishwanath Lawande, Narayan Hari Naik, Dattatreya Deshpande, and Prabhakar Sinari, vowed to fight for the freedom of Goa from the Portuguese using direct action strategies. They carried out a series of attacks on Portuguese police stations and establishments. All of them were sentenced to imprisonment by the Portuguese courts. The Goa Liberation Army, founded by Shivaji Rao Desai, an Indian army officer in the 1950s, attempted to utilize revolutionary tactics to challenge Portuguese colonialism. Many of the army's revolutionaries were hunted down and imprisoned in the cells of this prison. 4 of them managed to escape from this fortress of a prison, and they were Mahadev Korde, Namdev Harmalkar, Vijay Rane, and Pandurang Rane. The Kesari and the Maratha of Lokmanya Tilak inspired the Goan minds and molded public opinion in Goa. Thereafter, the Hindu of Dattatreya Venkatesh Pai and the Bharat of Govind Pundalik Hegde Desai campaigned vigorously, awakening the Goan masses. The columns of Louis de Menezes Braganza in Prakasha propagated the cause of liberalism and self-determination and stirred the hearts of the Goan literates who prepared themselves to get rid of the mental enslavement by the Portuguese. The anti-colonial movement in Goa gradually evolved into 2 camps, which advocated distinctly different strategies. The National Congress of Goa used non-violence and peaceful satyagraha tactics, while Azad Gomantak Dal and the Goa Liberation Army advocated revolutionary methods of resistance. Reformation of the local Goan elites, forming relationships with the Portuguese, led to the outburst of intellectual, cultural, and political life in Goa. After the 1926 takeover of Portugal by the right-wing Prime Minister Antonio de Oliveira Salazar, thousands of the educated elite fled to Bombay and joined the Indian nationalist movement as satyagrahis. Hundreds of Goan satyagrahis and freedom fighters were incarcerated here, in this very prison, and horribly tortured by Agente Casimiro Monteiro in torture chambers and open corridors to break the Indian resistance and stop the voices that were rising up and screaming for the freedom of Goa. The first civil disobedience movement against Portuguese rule was launched on 18th June 1946. The Goan nationalists and Indian freedom fighters joined hands to break the political barrier between Indians in Goa and Indians fighting for freedom in other parts of British India. The educated Goans were influenced by the speeches and writings of Francisco Luis Gomes, one of the first Indians to demand freedom for India from the British domination. The movement was led by socialist leader Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, who was arrested and incarcerated here in this prison on 19th June 1946 after a series of fiery speeches for the freedom of Goa from Portuguese rule. He continued his fiery speeches even in his prison hall, motivating all the prisoners to rise up in arms by raising their voices. It's time you liberate yourselves from the Portuguese chains. Break the chains and fight for your freedom. It is time to mold your own destiny and rise for our Mother India. Freedom from Portuguese rule. Freedom for Goa. Freedom for every Goan. Jai Hind! Jai Goa! These were the words of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia. The Portuguese were forced to release Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia across the border to silence the voices of freedom that he had ignited. But the torch was lit, and the flame was fearless as it spread like a forest fire, igniting the spirit of freedom in every Goan. Thousands of Goans joined the civil disobedience movement and began to demonstrate in front of Portuguese administrative offices, shouting the slogan, Jai Hind! Jai Goa! Jai Hind! Jai Goa! The panic-stricken police resorted to violence, lathi-charged and arrested many of our non-violent freedom fighters and locked the satyagrahis in prison cells. But they could never silence the voices. Jai Hind! Jai Goa! Dr. T.B. Kuna was the first to offer satyagraha and court arrest. Dr. Ram Hegde, Purushottam Kakodkar, Ose Loyola, Lakshmikant Bembre, and all the leaders of the resistance were arrested and locked into this very prison. All of them courted arrest while chanting the slogan, Jai Hind! Jai Goa! Dr. Kuna was court-martialed and sentenced to 8 years imprisonment and ordered to be deported to a distant Portuguese settlement in Africa. Gandhiji questioned the Portuguese government on this sentence in the Harijan, and the fire of protests for the freedom of Goa spread beyond Goa across the country. Over 1,500 freedom fighters were arrested, beaten, and held in detention for various terms in this prison and other temporary prison barracks. The voices picked up volume and became louder post India's independence from the British. Fishermen sang freedom songs protesting on the beaches. Fiery speeches by various freedom fighters at local community gatherings on the streets and in village squares. The Goan freedom fighters should carry on their struggle against the Portuguese and start an intensified Satyagraha movement. You should bravely face imprisonment, beatings, and hardships. Be fearless through non-violence. It does not matter if the Portuguese deport you to far-off penal settlements in Africa. They are only doing this because they are afraid of you, my fearless freedom fighters. You must do your duty and leave the rest to Mother India. Jai Hind. These were the words of Mahatma Gandhi. Several Goan women faced unimaginable physical and mental torture in the quest for freedom of their homeland. In the face of political adversity and bullying by colonial forces, they stood their ground with unbroken courage. Let's salute the women who were the spearheads of Goa's freedom struggle. Sudha Madhav Joshi, popularly known as Sudhatai, the Virangana of the Goa liberation movement. Prema Purab from Pisurle, who worked underground and carried arms from Belgaum through the forest. Dr. Beatrice and Bertha de Menezes Braganza, the Braganza sisters, who were leading figures in the struggle and defied the ban on civil liberties by making several public speeches. Selina Olga Moniz from Saligaon, who was arrested for carrying the tricolor. Sharada Padmakar Savaikar, who were arrested and tortured in this very prison. Libya Lobo Sardesai was the invisible star of Goa's liberation struggle, running the underground radio station called Voice of Liberation. For several months, Libya moved from one location to another, always in hiding, but her voice was heard loud and clear across the state as she went live with her regular Voice of Freedom announcements from deep inside the jungles near the border. There were thousands who worked underground, unknown and unrecognized, but played a decisive role in Goa's struggle for freedom. We owe our freedom to the struggle of all these heroic daughters and sons of the soil of Goa. Famous playback singer Lata Mangeshkar also contributed to this fight for freedom.
She performed in a concert in Pune to help the revolutionaries raise money to buy materials to free Goa from Portuguese rule.
Portugal was requested several times to give up its holdings in Goa and other parts in India, but Portugal adamantly refused to do so. India had held on to its non-violent stance and refrained from using force for 14 long years after India's liberation, in the hope of a peaceful solution. But the Portuguese made no plans to leave. The fact that the Portuguese had become a NATO member was also a significant deterrent to the use of military force by the new Indian nation. When a problem defies all other means of solution, it is just and proper to take the sword in hand. On 17th November 1961, the Portuguese themselves provided the provocation when the garrison in Anjadiv Island fired upon an unarmed Indian steamship, Sabarmati, injuring the chief engineer. The Portuguese had constantly feared being attacked by Indian forces and wanted to warn the steamship, which was sailing too close to the Portuguese-controlled waters. A week later, the same Anjadiv Island garrison fired on a group of Indian fishermen, attacking about 20 boats. One of the Indian fishermen died as a result of the firing, leading to several fishermen protests across the Konkan coast. The Portuguese claimed he was a smuggler, but the Goans were up in arms and raised their voices that echoed across the country. The congregation of Goan freedom fighters in Mumbai, who were part of the Indian national movement, raised their voices for the freedom of Goa, which echoed across the country and beyond, eventually leading to Operation Vijay in December 1961 by Indian Armed Forces to liberate Goa. INS Kirpan and INS Rajput were sent from Bombay to Karwar by the Indian Navy. These warships were directed to exercise Operation Chutney off the Goa coastline from their Karwar base. Operation Chutney involved the maintenance of a linear patrol by 2 warships off the coastline, reporting shipping, flight, and personal movements in and out of Portuguese territory, and to retaliate with necessary force if engaged by any surface or air units. Operation Chutney kept a strict vigil on the Portuguese garrisons and crushed their erstwhile freedom of movement. The suffocation and the helplessness was about to burst as thousands of Goan protesters and all the prisoners inside this prison raised their voices for the freedom of Goa. Operation Vijay was a surgical strike executed by the Indian Navy, Army, and the Air Force simultaneously to crush the Portuguese inside their landlocked, sea-locked, airlocked prison of Goa. The liberation of Goa began with complete encirclement of all Portuguese land and sea military installations, camps, and garrisons. At the stroke of the intervening midnight of the 17th and 18th December 1961, the Indian military forces entered Goa from all directions with infantry and tanks on the ground, naval forces from the sea, and air support from fighter planes. The infantry forces and army tanks moved in from all sides into Portuguese territory of Goa, attacking the enemy camps. The Portuguese blasted their own bridges in a bid to stop the advance of the Indian troops. The warships and naval forces swooped in from the sea and locked the entire Konkan shoreline. Air Force fighter planes and bombers flew overhead to attack the Portuguese airport and radio stations. On 18th December 1961 at 7:05 a.m., the Portuguese radio station at Bamboli was bombed by the Indian Air Force to stop all relays to the outside world. This air attack was followed through by 12 bombers, escorted by 4 fighter planes that raided the Daboli airport and rendered the Portuguese airport out of action. 63 bombs were dropped in this precise operation that ruined the runway and removed all possibilities of Portuguese air support or retaliation. The first action by the Indian Navy was aimed at capturing the Anjadiv Island. INS Trishul and INS Mysore swung into action, and the island was bombarded by guns from the warship. Assault parties in a series of waves attacked the Portuguese posts and captured the island, taking all Portuguese soldiers as prisoners, and the Indian national flag was hoisted on Anjadiv Island for the first time. On the night of 18th December 1961, Major Shivdev Singh Sidhu and Captain Vijay Kumar Sehgal, leading the squadron of the 7th Cavalry Division, reached the fort, aiming to rescue the Goan freedom fighters imprisoned here, inside the dark cells of this prison. The Portuguese forces stationed at Fort Aguada refused to surrender and opened automatic machine gun and rifle fire through the gates on the Indian forces. A grenade wounded Captain Sehgal. Major Sidhu removed his holy turban and threw the turban towards Sehgal and asked one of his men to tie up his wound. The major asked his men to go bring up the tanks and himself took up his Sten gun and fought heroically. A mortar shell exploded near the major, fatally injuring him. He died within a few minutes, sacrificing his life to save the Goan prisoners inside this very prison. Indian military tanks arrived at the gates, and the Portuguese soldiers surrendered immediately by raising the white flag. It was unfortunate that these heroes lost their lives in the final siege of Fort Aguada. They will always be remembered for saving the lives of our freedom fighters imprisoned within the cells of this prison. Within 36 hours, without much resistance from Portuguese forces, India liberated Goa. The Portuguese political influence on Goa came to a sudden end with their complete surrender. They raised the white flag everywhere, leaving behind the shackles of Portuguese reign. Goa returned to Mother India.
Voice of Liberation.
Libya Lobo Sardesai, who operated from the jungles of Castle Rock and was found by the Indian forces and put on a plane mounted with loudspeakers. Flying all over Goa, Lobo made the announcement that Goa was free and dropped pamphlets announcing the freedom of her home from foreign rule. She was truly the most heard voice of freedom in Goa. On 19th December 1961, Goa officially became a part of India and was declared as a union territory along with Daman and Diu. Elections were held 2 years later, and after a popular vote from the public, Goa achieved statehood in 1987. The Aguada lighthouse shines proudly, standing still on the ramparts of this fort, welcoming millions of tourists and time travelers like you and me. Fort Aguada, saluting Mother India, standing still through time and tide. Jai Hind.